Hello, everyone, and welcome to Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. I'm your host, retired NYPD Sergeant Bill Cannon, a 27-year veteran of the NYPD. So yesterday, the case got a little more interesting. The case, of course, of Savannah Soto and Matthew Guerra. And the three arrests that they've made in this case, I'll put the photos on the screen. And the newest arrestee is on the left, and that person is Myrta Romanos, who is the stepmother of Christopher and the wife of Ramon. And as to what her involvement is in this, that's what we're going to speak about today. And did this make this case more simple, or did it make it more difficult? There's a lot of more conjecture, a lot more sort of conspiracy theorists going on, and that's the nature of true crime. But we're going to try to put this case going straight down the middle as what does the evidence mean? And what did the confessions, what did the admissions, and what does yesterday's arrest mean to this case? And because we're experienced investigators, NYPD investigators, retired sergeant, and also Mike Giri, a retired NYPD sergeant and a professor of criminal justice. That doesn't mean we're right, but what we're going to do is we're going to interpret this evidence and give you it from a police perspective, our perspective. So hold on to your seats. You're about to enter the off-the-cuff zone. Real crime from a police perspective. Police off the cuff.
There has to be some common sense.
Yes, sir. They have the car stopped at 10th and Ranch Michael Ryder.
We still don't know who pulled the trigger.
Joining me today, and he's been absent for a couple of days, and I always like to have him in here because I call him the man of reason and the low-key. I appreciate his low-key personality and the way he intuitively thinks of things. And he is retired NYPD sergeant, professor at Albertus Magnus College in Connecticut, law degree, so he's also a lawyer. Welcome to the show, Professor Mike Giri. Mike, welcome to the show.
Hey, Billy. Good to see you. Thank you for having me on today. Good afternoon,
Mike,
everyone.
I think that people like having you here. Sometimes I go off the rails a little bit, and they're like, "We wish Giri was here." To rein Bill in, maybe. I don't. Maybe I'm not that bad, but I like to say that anyway. So everyone was talking about, or not everyone. Here, hang on one second. Sharon Reynolds, I just want to mention this. Dear Sergeant Bill, if I said in past chats live that I knew they mentioned there was a third person to be arrested. So I did say before it happened that it was going to be Christopher's mom. Call it a woman's intuity. Very good, Sharon. Excellent. Obviously the San Antonio police knew that there was one other person that was about to be arrested. However, the timeline cannot always be pushed for the public's gratification. The police have to wait till they have a thing called probable cause, which is the law. You can't arrest someone just because you think they did something. You have to have probable cause, which is facts and circumstances that would allow a reasonable person to believe that a crime has been committed and the person being arrested committed the crime. Word for word definition out of I don't know what book, but it is word for word. So the police did know that there was a third person from day one. However, they were not ready to pull the trigger on this. And once they got the evidence, you see what happened. They made that arrest yesterday. Mike.
Yeah, Billy, we talked about this several times. That idea that towel. When we looked at the video of the of Matthew Soto's car, I'm sorry, Matthew Guerra's car being driven by someone in the darkened alleyway, and you see the Chevy Silverado, and we knew that they had gotten the owner's name and they got a license plate. They got a fix on that person. And then people did see a towel look like being given to Father Ramon to wipe down the outside of that car that being driven by his son Christopher, and so the father and the son, he got them arrested, but the police, and we talked about this, that other person wasn't really an active member of this cleaning up the crime scene, if you want, fixing it, solving it, getting that car to a place where it won't be found for a while, helping their son. And so speculation probably was early on from the police department, without mentioning anybody's names publicly. They probably thought it was the mother. And then they found some more like Ring doorbell video footage of the Silverado leaving that area, and they kind of narrowed it down to the mom. But you have to handle her very carefully because she has a lot of information, and so you may not want to, even if you got probable cause, go out and just bang down the doors and lock her up in handcuffs. You want to handle that gently. So they were very careful. The San Antonio Police Department did a great job. They were very careful, lining up all their ducks in a row, making sure they did everything right. And when they probably couldn't get any cooperation from her, but seeing her on the video, that gave them probable cause, and they went ahead with a formal arrest. But I'm sure they didn't want to do that at first. I'm sure they wanted to talk to her and maybe get her cooperation, if possible. Long shot, but get that cooperation before they have to make an arrest. They did a great job, and they were very careful not to play their cards and show their hand publicly, and they did a good thing.
Mike, I said earlier on, and exactly mirror what you just said, is that they probably would have preferred to have Myrta as a witness rather than as an arrested perpetrator.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If she would have cooperated, they probably offered her a deal, and she refused because she was uncooperative.
Right.
So then they had to develop probable cause, and believe it or not, they developed probable cause through the video of their home, their own video. They got the video from their house, which implicated them, seeing them go in the truck, the Silverado.
Mm-hmm.
So amazing. But all of these things that people want instant gratification for take time. Downloading video, getting a search warrant. You can't just take someone's video. You need a search warrant. So you have to present those facts to a judge, and then someone has to go to the judge and swear to it, and then the judge has to say, yes, you have probable cause for this search warrant. I'm going to sign it. Then they get the search warrant. Now they need some technical people to view and to lift the video off the camera so as they don't lose it, because most video these days is in the cloud, right? It's
right.
The computer cloud. So you need someone that's a computer geek, and I use that word very lovingly, to remove and recover so you don't lose that video. So here's a little, hopefully it'll load. I'm having problems with hopefully tomorrow I'll get this fixed, but
San Antonio police have arrested a third person connected to their murders. 47-year-old Myrta Romanos. According to the arrest affidavit, her gun was used in the murders. She's believed to be the stepmother of the alleged murderer, Christian Preciado, and Ramon Preciado Jr.'s wife. Ramon is Christian's father. He is accused of helping Christian move the bodies. According to SAPD, Romanos is the final suspect in this case.
We were able to develop information from surveillance video that shows Miss Romanos involved the night of the murder. That video surveillance shows her at the home right after the murders, and she was seen on video surveillance leaving in that black truck that we all saw on the surveillance video, and then returning to her home with Christopher and Ramon in that truck.
Romanos will be charged.
So she's going to be charged with several different charges.
We've got an update to a story out of
Little technical difficulty
A
here.
third person has
He's
been
going to
arrested
be
in
charged with
connection to
several different charges. One of them,
Video surveillance shows her
you just-
at the home, right?
With
There's
3
on the screen
felonies:
what she's being charged
altering,
with.
destroying, or concealing a human corpse, abusing a corpse, and tampering with evidence. SAPD believes all suspects are now in custody.
As of right now, are you under the impression there are any more suspects?
At this time, we're confident that there's no more suspects. At this time, we're confident that these were the 3 individuals that were involved in this case.
Police would not say where the murders of Guerra and Soto happened, except that they know it was in the area of the suspect's home.
Melissa Vega at the live desk happening right now. We are still waiting on the official booking photo from the Bexar County Jail of Myrta Romanos, but we do have some new video coming into our newsroom tonight at the magistrate. Our cameras capturing Romanos in the very preliminary stages of her criminal proceedings. Again, she is facing 3 charges, including abuse of a corpse, tampering with evidence, and altering, destroying, or concealing a human corpse. All 3 felony charges, each with their own bond set. And we learned just a short time ago, those 3 bonds total to more than $1 million. Of course, as soon as we get her arrest photo, she's currently still going through the process of getting booked into the Bexar County Jail. We will share that with you. That is the latest from the live desk. Mandy.
Just one day after laying his son to rest, Matthew Guerra's father says this latest arrest is right on time. News 4 San Antonio's Stephanie Esquivel tells us the 3rd arrest opens the door to justice and closure.
Call me Pops. And just the smile he would put on my face.
An excruciatingly painful time for Matthew Guerra's father, Gabriel, just one day after Matthew's burial and seeing his unborn grandson, Fabian, for the first time.
It's not the way I wanted to meet Fabian, but most definitely, get to seeing him and he looked like Savannah, and just him being on top of Matthew and being close to Matthew, it meant the world to me.
A 3rd arrest in connection with the young family's killing is made.
Perfect timing with God and, just giving me comfort or something to help me during a difficult time.
Gabriel says he wants the harshest punishment possible for the 3rd suspect, Myrta Romanos, who is accused of helping to cover up the crime. But Bexar County District Attorney Joe Gonzalez says adding additional charges doesn't seem likely right now.
I certainly understand why the family would like to see others, the parents, for example, charged with capital murder, but the law requires that we have some evidence of that.
Regardless of the charges or punishment, Gabriel says he's relieved that police found the evidence needed to arrest Romanos because the other 2 suspects, Romanos' husband Ramon Preciado and her stepson Christopher Preciado, were not telling the entire truth.
They were trying to protect her from being arrested, like trying to take the blame for everything and not including her.
Stephanie Esquivel, News 4 San Antonio.
So, first of all, we feel horrific for the family.
Right.
They're suffering a great deal now. This tragedy seems senseless. It's hard to understand how someone could be this evil to do what the shooter in this case did, who we believe, and I'll say it again, based on his confession. Some people when I present that, some people in the chat don't want to accept that. And we speak about the statement that he made to police, that he said that Matthew confronted him with a gun and he was able to manipulate the gun, and the gun went off and shot Savannah. And then he was able to manipulate, again, using that word manipulate, the gun again, and that killed Matthew. Now, if that was going to be believable at all, then there would have been either a gun found inside the car or somewhere on the scene And it would have been a gun that was not traceable or that came back in some way to Matthew. However, via a search warrant, and there's two huge pieces of evidence here. The gun is recovered, and then they're not saying what type of gun it is. It's obviously a semi-automatic. We don't know what caliber. The gun belongs to Myrta, right? Myrta Romanos.
Right.
And the ballistics, the spent shell inside the car matches this gun. Mike, that's very powerful evidence. Very, very powerful.
Yeah, Billy, people don't want to hear the term confession. They want to just say that it was his statement, but his statement is a confession as to the facts as he wants to believe them to be. He's admitting, and in self-defense, when you interpose a self-defense claim, you're admitting to actually doing the physical act. So he's actually admitting to discharging that firearm twice, and the firearm hit two people in the head. Okay. And his only condition that he puts on it is that he didn't have any sort of criminal mental state, that he did not intend to kill them. He was only intending to save his life. That would be believable if it actually, as you say, matched the circumstances as the police found them, and the fact and that they were probably not killed at close range. But it appears from the medical examiner's report that they were killed, we believe, at close range. And then number two, the firearm was, if you believe his stepmom, it belonged to her. It came from that household. So he is basically confessing to the act, disclaiming any sort of criminal mental state, but he's actually confessing to the act. That's a confession.
Well, I said that that day
That's
one,
it.
and
Yeah,
look, we don't know what was put out there very early in this case by the San Antonio Police, Sergeant Moscosos, who gave the initial press conference when the two, when Ramon and Christopher were arrested. When they did the initial press conference, and I'll pull up their photos here.
right.
Sergeant Moscoso said this was a drug deal gone bad. The police usually don't say that unless there's somewhat irrefutable evidence of that fact, or they're not going to put that out there. But yet they put that out there. And then that was later on solidified by the family of Matthew Guerra and Savannah Soto, of saying, yes, they both were selling drugs and they were using their phones and their social media. So that we know that's part of this story. All right. Now the outlier is why. Why? If Christopher is the shooter, and I believe he is, why did he do it? Was it a ripoff? Was it some kind of vendetta? Why did he kill two innocent people and an innocent, and a baby, an unborn child, Fabian? 3, a triple murder. Why did he do that? What the backstory to this? That's the only thing we're missing here is the backstory.
Right.
I think that bothers a lot of people because people always want to hear motive. Why? The why. Why did he do this? And again, sometimes the drug trade doesn't make any sense. People do horrific things, and we're looking for sense. We're looking for it to make sense. And many times it does not. Mike.
Yeah, Billy, everybody wants to know the why. The police may come up with that, and maybe Christopher will say something, make a statement. Maybe he'll plead if that eventually, and provide the why to the judge at his sentencing, perhaps. But everybody wants to know the context. What's the context of this event? Why would this happen? Because people want to make sense of it, as you say. But it's a sick, violent, cruel, unforgiving world that Savannah and Matthew were operating in. Maybe they didn't realize how senseless and unforgiving it was because maybe they got away with a lot of things. My thought at this point, not knowing any more than you or Phil or what the media knows right now, is that I'm thinking he probably brought the gun to the meeting. Maybe he was going to rip off Matthew and didn't realize that there was going to be another person in the car, a 9-month pregnant Savannah. Maybe he thought he was just going to rip off Matthew and scare the crap out of him, point his gun at him, take his cash, and then leave. Maybe with some sort of initiation into a gang of his own. I don't know. Maybe he was greedy. Maybe he saw Matthew flashing a lot of cash on Instagram, social media. I don't think he believed that there was going to be a pregnant girl in the car. There must have been a lunging, a fight for that firearm. There may have been several shots fired, but I don't think he intended there to be more than one victim, maybe just a robbery victim. And it all went to shit instantly. That's where I'm coming from at this point.
Absolutely. Chris B, thank you so much for the $9.99 super sticker. Very much appreciated. Thank you guys, all you new Police Off the Cuff fans. Carly, I don't think his family knew ahead of time, but they definitely knew shortly after and failed to alert authorities.
Agreed.
Wouldn't be the first time a parent covers for their kid. No doubt. Ari's honesty. I found out Ramon is the husband since 2009. Chris is the son, but the house belongs to her. But it was the dad's home before. All of these things, these sort of peripheral things, all may become important down the road. But for right now, everyone's looking for the why. Why did this happen? And as I said, sometimes in the drug trade, you can't explain the unexplainable. To me, it's unexplainable why someone would shoot and kill a 9-month-old, 18-year-old female. I don't see how you can explain that. And, it's that horrific. And then this is not a double murder, it's a triple murder. Santa Elise Huth Johnson, thank you so much. Have a nice day. Bill Cannon, Professor Mike Giri. Sana, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Folks, this is Police Off the Cuff, real crime stories. If you like real crime, true crime from a police perspective, then you're in the right place. And if you're not subscribed to us, go on our YouTube, hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, ring that bell, and share us with your friends and your family. We'd appreciate that. If you want to contribute to this show, we have a Patreon with 3 different levels, and we also have a YouTube channel memberships with, count them, 5 different levels. And you could support the Police Off the Cuff real crime stories in that way. This case is really heartbreaking, and I think we've tried to tell the truth right from the beginning of what it looked like. And I think one of the things we also appreciate is that the San Antonio police did an unbelievable job on this case.
At 4, San Antonio police make a 3rd arrest in connection to the capital murder case of Savannah Soto and Matthew Guerra. 19-year-old Christopher Preciado has been charged with capital murder, and his father, Ramon Preciado, also charged on abuse of a corpse. Then today, Myrta Romanos was taken into custody, accused of helping move the bodies of the couple to the location where they were later found off Danny K. Drive. KENS 5's Vanessa Croy has more on the arrest of the stepmother. Vanessa.
Well, Deborah, according to an arrest warrant, officers discovered the murder weapon that Romanos allegedly hid behind a locked door in her bedroom. And shell casings from the victim's car later matched that gun, and Romanos admitted to police that it was hers. But it was a new piece of critical evidence that eventually cracked the case, leading them to believe a 3rd person was involved. And the arrest today.
We all hear about or we see on the video of the towel being handed outside that Silverado vehicle. And that was a piece of evidence that was that was pretty damn, let me put this back on the screen. pretty damn important.
Induced and deliver her baby.
Of course, now I put it back on the screen and it freezes up again. But so we know the story about that. We know the story that she was supposed to deliver her baby. She was supposed to be induced.
Mhm.
And this case started out as a missing person case.
Right.
That she was reported missing. And the thing is that what I find scary in this case is that Matthew Guerra had been shot at before. So he had basically gotten warnings that, this is a dangerous profession, maybe you should get out of this profession because it's not safe. So the family knew about this, and they knew that he had put himself in danger before. So what we question, that you see the thumbnail on the screen, third arrest in the Soto Guerra case, the whole family involved. But was the whole family involved by design or by what they considered to be necessity? Because now, after this horrific crime was committed, they had to cover for their son, Christopher, and help him try to get away with this.
Yeah, Billy, the father and the mother both seem to be accessories, what we'd call accessories after the fact. They were not part of any sort of initial conspiracy. It looks like Christopher did this on his own, probably with never mentioning it to his mother or his father, that he was going to rip somebody off or do a hit or whatever he was going to do that day. We're not sure. So there was no conspiracy amongst the three to carry out this sort of, hit and then dispose of the bodies. It looks to us and to you and me and Phil and a lot of other people that after what went down, Christopher contacted his father, and Ramon and Myrta are at home as parents, and they did whatever they can do very quickly. They facilitated the hiding of the bodies to give their son time and everyone else to figure out some sort of excuse, some sort of alibi, maybe get away with it. But they're accessories after the fact. That's why the Bexar County District Attorney Joe Gonzalez is not looking at a criminal conspiracy to commit capital murder. They are just charged as accessories after the fact. And that's what I think that's probably the way to go. I doubt the mom would be perfectly fine, hand her son the murder weapon and say, yeah, go ahead, son, go out there and kill a couple of people. I don't see it, because if that was going to happen, just think about it. If that was going to happen and he came home with a firearm, she probably would have then had her husband destroy that firearm, break it in half, burn it, cut it up, dispose of it, not put it into her bedroom in a closet or something. She was in shock. I'm sure the father was in shock. I'm sure, they did what they did quickly to cover up for their son. But I think for them, it was a living nightmare for, a week before they got picked up. It was sad.
Mike, that's the thing that to me makes the story that Christopher told all connect. The dots all connected, because he makes up this story that Matthew came to the scene and pulled a gun on him, and then the story about him manipulating the gun. That was the language that's used in the arrest affidavit.
Right.
He manipulated the gun and it shot and killed Savannah. Then he manipulated the gun again and it shot and killed Matthew. And then, so maybe you could buy that story, all but two things. Two things. One, the spent shell in the vehicle that matched the firearm that was recovered in the search warrant of their home. And you can even say part number 3 is that Myrta says that it's her gun.
Right.
And besides her statement that it's her gun, there's other ways to look into that, right? Was it at one time purchased in her name? You would think that maybe they have a gun just for their home protection, or maybe it was an illegal gun, but she just owned up to it. It's my gun. I own that gun. But in any event, there's 3 pieces of evidence that tied that gun to this homicide. And the story of Matthew bringing a gun to the scene, that's possible. They could have gotten rid of that gun. Well, obviously, they got rid of the wrong gun if they did, because according to Matthew's family, he was always packing. He was packing heat, right?
Right.
But those 3 pieces of evidence, I think, really are pretty solid. Pretty much tell the tale here.
Yeah, Billy, it appears that as you know, Matthew has had a number of run-ins with the law, and he's had his probation extended. There's no way he really probably wanted to carry a firearm on his person. And it may be, if you're going to sell narcotics to someone, especially marijuana, you're not selling a couple of kilos of coke and you're going to rip this person off in some sort of high stakes, transaction. No, this is marijuana. Now, this might be $500 worth of marijuana, $100 worth of marijuana, who knows? But you've got your pregnant girlfriend in the car. That's reckless to begin with, but you're probably not going to have a firearm, especially having knowing your record, and you're going to make some money, quick money right now as you're driving your girlfriend to be induced for labor. That's not the time that even a dumb criminal would know better than to, possibly get themselves into some sort of firefight or get themselves pulled over by the law, by the police. It just doesn't hang together. The mom, Myrta, saying it's hers, not realizing that her son had told the police that, Matthew had pulled the gun on him. It just totally cuts the legs out of unfortunately cuts the legs out of her son Christopher's version of events. But as you and I think, and Phil does too, and many of people in the chats have said this, what's the most logical thing that probably happened? You don't have to take logic and turn it into a pretzel to try to figure out some sort of excuse or some sort of weird set of facts. What's more likely than not to have happened? What makes sense? And that makes sense that he brought the gun to the gunfight and maybe never even intended to use it. Maybe he just intended to rip off Matthew. Who knows? But it all went to hell, instantly.
Absolutely. Pesa from the chat. I think all these folks were dysfunctional. People are usually products of their environment. Poverty, trauma, addiction, lack of education, opportunities to put you in a bad place. Pesa, I agree. I think you're right. Sharon Reynolds from the chat. Why no charges yet on the murder of the baby? Do you think those charges could follow? Maybe the police are holding back, but surely the public want to know why no charges on the baby. I believe that the district attorney did indicate that there would be 3 charges of murder. A full-term child can be considered. And I think by Texas law, it's even before that.
Yeah.
A pregnant woman. Mike, you explain this since you're the lawyer.
And I think under Texas law, a child that's in the womb of any gestation, if it could be 1 month to 9 months, it doesn't matter if it could survive outside the mother's womb. It's considered a person under Texas law. Different states might have different, details about that. Like maybe it'd have to be like 7 or 9 months, final trimester. But in Texas, it doesn't matter. A pregnant woman who's is carrying a baby, if she gets killed, that's theoretically 2 people. Yeah,
absolutely. Here's the part of the arrest affidavit, and it's I just moved it out of the way a little bit. Antonio Police, San Antonio Police. Let me just move it over a little bit. Contacting your affiant made the location. Upon arrival to the location, your affiant observed the vehicle. The vehicle was a 2013 Kia Optima with a Texas license plate of Thomas Robert Charles 9447. Your affiant checked the VIN number, and the VIN number was the same VIN number that was broadcast on the news for the missing couple. A check of the information through NCIC, ICIC showed the vehicle belonged to the boyfriend of the female. So they knew when they came upon this vehicle. And the important thing, we get to the important thing right here. Your affiant then observed the back seat of the vehicle. The affiant observed the deceased male in the back seat of the vehicle. The deceased male resembled the boyfriend to the female. The male had an apparent gunshot wound to his head. It appeared the male had been dragged into the vehicle. Your affiant did not observe any weapon near the male. A search warrant was requested so entry into the vehicle could be conducted. Again, guys, they can't just go into the car. Well, the first thing they did break the window, because the most important thing in a homicide investigation is the protection of life.
Right.
So if there's any possibility that the two deceased, Savannah Soto and Matthew Guerra, could still be alive, they want to rule that out and go into the car. And it turned out they're of course deceased. But the police did the right thing. After that, they secure the crime scene. And before they can process the crime scene, they need a search warrant. That doesn't happen like snack your fingers, snap your fingers. Oh, get the search warrant, have the judge deliver it. No, someone has to go to court and swear before a judge, and then the judge writes up the search. It could take several hours. So they're sitting there looking at this scene for several hours until they get the search warrant. Now they get the search warrant, and they, while waiting for the search warrant, your affiant spoke to the family. Of course, the affiant is the detective assigned to this case. The families of the female and the male. It was found that the boyfriend to the female sold narcotics and would use his phone through cellular communications as well as social media to sell narcotics. It was also advised that the boyfriend would post money and narcotics on Instagram. It was stated that people wanted to rob the boyfriend. It was stated that the boyfriend had been shot at before. The family provided your affiant with the phone number of the female. The family of the male provided your affiant with his phone number as well as his Instagram. When the search warrant arrived at the location, a search of the vehicle was conducted. The search found a spent shell casing in the vehicle. However, there was no weapon recovered in the vehicle. There was apparent blood transfer on the outside of the vehicle that was not consistent with the boyfriend causing harm to the female. Both the female and male had gunshot wounds to the head, and the male also had an apparent drag marks on his back. It was believed that the female and male were killed at a different location, and the vehicle was driven to the recovered location. So interesting, very interesting, but it doesn't answer a lot of questions though, Mike. It was they thought that they were shot at a different location. But the thing that everyone wants to know, well, were they shot inside the car at a different location? And one of the pieces of evidence seems to indicate that no, both of them were not. And the fact that Matthew had drag marks on his back, that potentially may be that he was dragged from his legs with his back against the ground and leaving those drag marks on his back. I don't think someone would get those type of drag marks they're talking about if you just moved them from the front seat to the back seat and if the shooting occurred inside the car. And another reason I'm thinking that is because there was only one spent shell found inside the car. And that spent shell matches the firearm belonging to Myrta Romanos. So, but the shooting location, when it says in the arrest warrant, it was a different location than the car was recovered. That's all it's saying. It's not saying that the crime scene for both is not inside that, but they're not saying that. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, Billy, the police are being very, very careful to release information, obviously, on this case. And that's a good thing. You and Phil have done this way more than I. And so I'm thinking, as you're thinking, that occurred probably very close to that location. If you're going to go to get buy some narcotics and you call somebody, you text somebody to come over, and you're walking from your house, it's obvious that Christopher did not use a vehicle to get to the location. It's pretty, I think, pretty obvious. So it's got to be somewhere close by, a block or two from his house, maybe a street that's, remember, it's 11:45, 11:52 in the evening. So it's dark, probably an area where there's not a lot of street lights, that sort of thing. A lot of prying eyes, very quiet part of a street, not on a place with a lot of traffic. So he probably met them there. They're thinking Charlie Chan or whatever it was. I'm not sure what the name of the street was, and met them there. And as you say, they probably got out of the car, because I'm thinking also that's proven too, A, by the drag marks, and B, by maybe the father wiping with a towel the front, the driver's side door of that vehicle, the Kia. Maybe he saw, even in the darkness, maybe some blood on that door, and wanted to get rid of it, to clean it up a little bit for his son. But I'm thinking that's probably within 2 blocks of where Christopher and his mother and his stepmom and his father live, and they drove very quickly to another location, met the dad, and then he met the dad at a particular location, and they drove over really quickly, a block or two, because it's all within the same neighborhood. This didn't happen, 8 miles away across the other side of San Antonio, and they drove way back over to the neighborhood. This all happened within a really, really compressed time frame, just a few minutes, and within, I'm thinking, 2 to 3 blocks, the most, of where that car was recovered.
Absolutely. One of the things that I think will make a lot of this academic is if there is communication between Christopher, Matthew, and Savannah on their cell phones prior to this. That'll put this whole thing together, and there must have been. Again, the San Antonio police are not releasing that. There must have been an agreement to meet at a certain location, right?
Right. And also
the pinging of Savannah's cell phone put them on that block near the house.
Right.
That's how they found the black truck, right?
Right. And just think about it. I'm sure San Antonio Narcotics Division is heavily involved in this investigation. And maybe they could pinpoint and narrow down what's the most likely street where a lot of drug transactions take place. What are the dealers' favorite spot in a particular neighborhood? What block or blocks, at night when there's not a lot of traffic, there's no cameras around, there's not a lot of Ring doorbell cameras, not a lot of street lights, where it is a best location. And I'm thinking that they got to be heavily involved, and they may know at this point where the shooting took place, and maybe they've gone over there. Maybe there is very little evidence that's still available. Maybe it's gotten washed away. But if Soto was shot in the head outside the vehicle, from the crime scenes I've seen in the Bronx and Manhattan, there's an awful lot of blood that comes out of someone's skull. You got all the liquid in the brain, and you've got all the blood pouring out. So I think they may know, they just don't want to say it right now.
I think you're right. And the thing is that so much physical evidence, and again, we're not privy to the crime scene. We're not privy to the inside of that vehicle. We're not privy to what they saw, because a crime scene technician that processes crime scenes for a living can almost read the crime scene like he's reading a book. He could say, well, this is what happened first. This is what happened second. This is the result of this. This is the result of that. They're excellent at doing that. So they can interpret this crime scene, but we don't know those factors yet. So is there as we stated before, is there a good chance that only Savannah was shot inside the car and that Matthew was shot outside the car? The evidence would seem to indicate that, but I could be wrong. I'll say that right away. I'm not, I'm not a crime scene guy, but I also don't have the benefit to view the crime scene. And in addition to the crime scene is the pathologist report. The pathologist studying the wounds, whether it was a close contact wound, how close did he think the gun was fired from? That's very important. Was the gun fired 5 to 6 inches? Was it pressed up against the head? All of those things leave a scientific piece of evidence at that scene. If it was a close contact wound and the gun was held against the head, we know we've used the term before. There's gunshot residue, there'd be stippling, and there potentially could be tattooing. Tattooing being the imprint that the barrel of the gun would leave on the person's head if it was held up against it. So all of those things are scientific. Now marry all of that evidence with of course, the blood evidence, the blood spatter, all of those things inside the car, and then marry that together with the cell phone evidence of, did they speak before this? Did they agree to meet at a certain location? And then marry that to the fact that they've recovered the murder weapon and the spent shell matches. I mean, I don't know if I can explain this any better, because I've explained this numerous times, and there's still many, many, many people that don't believe that's what happened.
Yeah, Billy, it's an overlay, as you talked about, of a number of sciences. You look at the crime scene, the pictures from, maybe they know the location where the shooting occurred. How far away was that? Where was the body found? What kind of condition it was in? They can talk about the date. They could talk about and look at the level of decomposition. They could look at the wounds. You take all that information, and then you take the electronic information and overlay it like a clear piece of paper, clear piece of plastic that you could write on, over like a timeline of decomposition. And then you put that all together, and then you can figure out movements. And I always talk to my students, a chronological timeline of a homicide is so important, because you can eliminate a lot of people, eliminate a lot of possibilities, and narrow a list of people and circumstances down to a real small margin. And I would, I think the frustration is that people have a lot of information from very disparate sources, and a lot of the stuff, some of it is just conjecture that's put out there as fact. I don't mind admitting that, I'm not a homicide detective. I was always like the first responder, uniform guy, as a sergeant or patrolman on the scene. That sort of thing. You would come in, and Phil would come in and then take over the case. But I'm always going to present something about my theory and from my experience. I'm not going to put it out there as this is absolute. You can take this to the bank. This is the Bible. No, people put stuff out there and they swear to it, and other people believe it, and unfortunately, they end up going down rabbit holes. Always think, what's the most logical turn of events in a particular timeline that may have occurred, and that will probably lead you pretty solidly to the final answer of what happened. So, you and Phil know this stuff better than 99% of the people out there doing crime podcasts.
Well, Mike, I just want to also say, I think the San Antonio police, and I said it before, I think they did an outstanding job. And people will always point to your mistakes, not to they'll point to your losses rather than to your victories. And in every case, no matter what case, no matter what level, no matter if it's the FBI, if it's the CIA, if it's Manhattan North homicide, if it's Los Angeles homicide, there will be mistakes made. That's human error, because we don't have a crystal ball. An investigation is equal parts art and science, and you use the art of investigation, and hopefully the science will help prove what the art of the investigation is. The art of investigation is regular police work, pounding the pavement, speaking to people. And as we know, the science is the science of ballistics. The science of ballistics defined as the science of a projectile in motion. That's, and there's terminal ballistics, and, which is the science of when the bullet hits its target, And so all of these things, there's blood science, blood spatter, there's crime, there's forensic science, the pathology of this case, the autopsy. What does the bullet track look like? What does the bullet track say about how close or how far away the gun was fired from the person? All of these things, all of the science of that comes into play and answers questions that people demanding motive. We don't have motive right now. Is there a possibility that the San Antonio police do have a motive? Yes, but they're not talking, are they?
No, they're going to hold that close to their vest. They're going to be in close contact with Christopher and his dad's, especially Christopher's defense attorney. And that'll come later on. But that's what I'm thinking. Their narcotics, San Diego Narcotics Division is going to be very, very, San Antonio, I'm sorry, is going to be very involved. And they may have a lot of all that little bit of those pieces of the puzzle to make the big picture, the big mosaic of what happened before, during, and after. What's the reason? What's the why? Put this into context for us. Was this just a drug buy gone awry? Was this a drug hit? What was this? And we'll get there. And if the police know, they're holding that to that's, and the district attorney knows, if they do, they're holding that close to their vest. There's no sense in playing all of your cards right now, so early on in the investigation. It's frustrating to people to not know if the police already know. If they already know, if the public wants to know. But it's better for everyone if the public holds that back and may use that as leverage later on down the line when it comes to a possible plea deal, or a trial.
Donna Douglas, I think the parents knew what was going down. Christopher and his parents are all in the drug life, repairing air conditioners. I don't think so. Donna, I think you're probably right. KB, Matt's apartment, Chris's house, and the apartment complex drop-off is all 3 to 4 minutes apart. So, someone else put in the chat, do we think that the families know each other? There's a pretty damn good chance of that. I think there is a good possibility of that. This, again, is from the arrest affidavit. I'm going to go to the second part. During further investigation, your affiant found video surveillance at 5903 Danny K. The video surveillance found that on December 21st, 2023, around 23:59 hours, a Chevrolet Silverado gray driving with its lights off from the vehicle recovered location. The Silverado pulled in the middle of the back parking lot and parked the vehicle. The victim's vehicle could be seen approaching the Chevrolet Silverado. The victim's vehicle parked next to the Silverado. A heavy-set male exited the Silverado and the driver's side door of the victim's vehicle opened. The heavy-set male approached the driver of the victim's vehicle and appeared to speak to the driver. The heavy-set male then got a towel from his vehicle and appears to wipe down the outside of the victim's vehicle door where he had touched the vehicle. The driver of the victim's vehicle exited the vehicle for a brief moment and sat back in the driver's seat. The driver did not match the description of the female victim or the male victim. The Hispanic male got back into his vehicle. The victim's vehicle drove behind the building where the vehicle was found on December 26, 2023. The Silverado followed the victim's vehicle. Approximately 3 minutes later, the Silverado was observed leaving from behind the building where the victim's vehicle was found. The victim's vehicle did not leave the location. It was believed that the victims were already deceased in the vehicle at the time of the video observed. It is believed the unknown driver and heavy-set male observed parked the victim's vehicle at the location in an effort to hide the vehicle. On January 2nd, 2024, your affiant provided one of the victim's cell phones to Detective Knox at the Technical Investigations Unit. On January 23rd, 2024, your affiant received the phone download from Detective Knox. Your affiant found that the victim had recently searched the street of Charlie Chan Drive. Due to the affiant's knowledge of the crime scene, your affiant was aware that Charlie Chan Drive was a couple of blocks away from the victim vehicle recovery location. Your affiant was able to discover that the victim's vehicle pinged near Charlie Chan Drive and Cary Grant Drive around 2350 on the night they went missing. The vehicle did not start moving again until around 2354 hours. The vehicle then traveled to 5903 Danny K Drive, where the victims and their vehicle were discovered on December 26th, 2023. Your affiant conducted computer research and was able to locate a vehicle that looked identical to the suspect vehicle seen on camera with the victim vehicle. Your affiant did research on the owner of the vehicle and found the owner of the vehicle matched the description of the male that exited the vehicle on camera. Homicide detectives went to the vehicle location listed above and found the listed vehicle at the location. While at the residence on Charlie Chan, a person identified as Ramon Preciado reported knowing why the San Antonio Police Department was at his residence. Ramon Preciado informed San Antonio police detectives to speak with his son, identified as Christopher Preciado. Ramon Preciado and Christopher Preciado were transported to San Antonio Police Department homicide to speak with your affiant, while additional San Antonio Police Department detectives searched the residence on Charlie Chan Drive under the authority of a search warrant. So this is where Christopher tells the story of, actually, it's a confession.
Right.
He tells the story. It is a story, really, even though it was a confession of the part where Matthew comes up and pulls a gun on him, and again he somehow manipulated the gun, killing Savannah, and again manipulated the gun, killing Matthew. The story obviously doesn't hold much water, but that is a confession, and some folks don't want to accept that is a confession, but it in fact is a confession, Mike.
Yeah, Billy, it is. He's putting himself there at the location, at the date, and at the time, interacting with the two people who were later found dead with holes in their head. Yeah, the only thing that he may say that to mitigate it was that he was not thinking of killing. He was just trying to preserve his own life. But other than that, the mental state, he puts himself there handling the firearm with his own two hands, handling it. And the gun is discharging while he's handling it. So, yeah, it's hard to now maneuver around with that, story out there, and then have the mother say that it's her firearm and it belongs to her, and it's in that house where Christopher lives. So he's bringing the gun to the location. He puts himself there, puts himself handling it. His finger is pulling the trigger. That's a confession.
Absolutely. Phoenix from the chat. Why did Christopher need his parents at all at that point, since he already killed them and he could have driven to the apartments himself to dump car and walk back, since it was less than a mile? Well, was there a possibility that Matthew's body was outside the car and he needed someone to help him drag him into the car? Is that a possibility? Well, a human body, even if it weighs 180 pounds, it's, when you talk about dead weight, that's the definition of dead weight, and trying to move someone by yourself. So that's a potential reason he asked his father and his mother for help. Now, the mother and the father, of course, caught on their own video. They were caught on their own video, and that's what gave the police probable cause to put Myrta into the whole case. Now, folks, some people incorrectly said earlier, only one person is getting charged with this triple murder. They cannot even charge Ramon and Myrta with acting in concert because their actions were after the fact. Both Matthew and Savannah were already dead. So they couldn't charge Ramon and Myrta with acting in concert because they had nothing to do with the homicides. However, they did do some things after the fact, and they're charged with three things: disposing of a corpse, altering, destroying a corpse, and tampering with evidence. And you heard on the little video we played earlier that Myrta's bail is almost $1 million. It's over $300,000 on each charge. So I don't think they'll be getting out anytime soon. Mike, your thoughts?
Yeah, Billy, I don't think Christopher got his parents involved in this before the fact, like you think. I agree. Probably, my guess is, as the subscriber pointed out, why would you call this person? Why would you call the father? I'm thinking about this. It could be that Christopher panicked and he got in the car with. And he dragged Matthew into the back seat, put the I think it was a little baby seat on top of Savannah, jumped in the car, drove back towards his home, was freaking out. He was probably in shock and on adrenaline. Called his dad. He probably didn't know who else that he knew would actually help him. So he's not going to call a friend. He's going to call his dad. He met him at a neutral location, if you want to call it that, where they could talk unobserved. And his father's probably said, oh my God, you got to do. I'll help you, from this point forward. But he didn't need his father's help. He could have just driven to that location and walked home. That's a really good observation because everything is within a few blocks. But he didn't. And unfortunately, by him calling his parents, he gets his parents roped in on this as accessories after the fact, and they're going to be spending time in jail, and they're not getting out on any sort of pretrial release, any sort of bail. And so they are inadvertently accessories after the fact, facing felony charges themselves. And now they got to think about, their attorneys are going to be questioning them as to say, what do you want to do with your legal interests? Your legal interests are now different than your son's legal interests because you are now facing felony charges. You may be going away. He may be going away for life or facing a death penalty, but you may be going away for a couple of years yourselves. What are you going to do about this? So that's going to be very, very tricky.
Absolutely. Room 22, why does Myrta have a $1.1 million bond if she only threw a towel? Dad's is $600,000. Well, she's being charged with disposing of a corpse, manipulating a corpse, and also tampering with evidence. So they gave her $300-something thousand on each charge. That's the judge's decision. I can't really speak to that then. Christoph Kiocho, I think he was in the back seat, shot then and moved Matthew's body to the back. That's when those shots were heard being in the vehicle, muffled the shot sound.
Maybe.
Christopher, that's a possibility. I'm not going to dismiss anyone's, we don't have access to the crime scene. I'm not going to say, oh, no, that's preposterous. No, it's a possibility. Phoenix, like I said, Krista could have driven straight to the dump off the car by himself, so I even involved. You're right, Phoenix. That's 100% correct. He involved unnecessarily his parents in this situation. So this was the earlier on in the case.
Are the only suspects that we were looking for.
This was earlier on where they just said they didn't have any other suspects. And then it turned out that, of course, Myrta was put into the case by her actions. Let me just remove this. So she was put into the case, and now with tampering with evidence, with manipulating a corpse, and of course, the main charge was the tampering with evidence was a serious charge, and this was the walkout with Ramon. Fact that there were 2 arrests in this case, and we had said very early on that we were almost positive that San Antonio police would make.
Did you know she was pregnant?
Oh, always fake news. So.
This is your final chance to say something about your side.
Hey guys, we're going this way.
I love the way the press tries to try the case on the scene, Oh, this is your last chance. if you confess, if you say you're innocent, we'll get you off, It's it's sort of pathetic, but that's how they get their numbers. So this is a very interesting case, and the why is really important, and we don't right now know the why. We have no idea the why, and Mike, that's
right,
commonly called motive, right? And we
right,
don't know the motive right now.
right. Motive never has to be proven in a court of law. All the district attorney is responsible for is to prove, who, what, where, when, how. The why isn't necessary, but people want to know why because they want to be able to understand something like this, especially because there's a little infant, innocent baby who was taken from us.
Lana Hublin, doesn't make any sense. You guys really think Matthew watched Christopher shot his girlfriend? He just sits not doing it. I mean, we have to put ourselves in a situation. Lana, who says that he shot Savannah first? I think he probably shot Matthew first, but good point, Lana. Yeah, we don't know exactly. Do the San Antonio police know? Yeah, I think they know, but they're not telling us, right? But it could have happened many, many different ways than we're even predicting here. As I said, we have no access to the crime scene. We have no access to the case folder. We have no access to the search warrants where would tell us, did Matthew, did Savannah, and Christopher have communication before this even happened? Maybe this was a planned days or a week before. Maybe they had lots of communication. Maybe Christopher said, "Bring change of a lot of money." I could have been to set up the robbery. So we don't have access to any of those things. But do the San Antonio police have that information? You bet they do, Mike.
Yeah, Billy, they're not going to tell everybody everything. They're going to keep all their information close to their vest, and and I'm sure the narcotics division has can fill in all those blanks. Is this the first time that Christopher went to buy marijuana from Matthew? What has he done in the past? Who has he bought from in the past? With Christopher's cell phone, they'll be able to see, and Matthew's cell phone, and you've got Savannah's cell phone. There may be a lot of information on the cell phones as to who's been purchasing what, from whom, where, and when, and how much, because people are texting constantly, and that's how that's how people do it nowadays. So, and all of that is on our cell phones, and you can't get rid of it. Once it's there, no matter how many times you try to delete it. They're not going to tell us everything. It'll come out as necessary before the trial during discovery so that the defense has all that information. But there's not going to be a lot of press conferences giving out details, which would be great. I would love that, but they're not going to do it.
Absolutely. Folks, if you're looking for a great attorney in the New York metropolitan area, then Joe Murray is your man. Joe's a retired NYPD police officer and a fantastic defense attorney. You can reach Joe on his cell phone at 718-514-3855. Email him at joe@jmurray-law.com. Or go on his website, jmurray-law.com. Not only is Joe a fantastic defense attorney, but a huge supporter of the Police Off the Cuff podcast. We appreciate everything he has done for us. So, folks, we're just throwing out some concepts there of what we think happened. And again, as I said earlier on, should be humble. I could be wrong in some of my assessments, but we're trying to connect the dots of the evidence here and to make these predictions based on what we see as the evidence. As this case moves forward, I believe more and more things will come out about it. Will we find out that that perhaps Matthew and Christopher knew each other? I think there's probably a 90 to 100% chance of that, that they've had prior dealings with each other. again, did the San Antonio police know that? Yeah, I think they do know that. So all of these things that are secrets to us right now are not secrets to the police. So we will stay with this case, and when something new comes out, we will surely bring it to you. Mike, I would like to give you your final thoughts, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, final thoughts, Billy. I think that I just want the listeners to view podcasts like ours, where we present our take on this based on you, me, and Phil, 67, 68 years of policing experience, and not just thinking of things off the top of our head. That's not the way it works. That's not accurate. So please keep in touch with our YouTube channel, Police Off the Cuff, and get the real stuff, unvarnished, as real as it can get from a police officer's point of view.
That was pretty good, Mike. Thanks for plugging our channel that way. It really helps. And folks, again, if you're not subscribed, go on to YouTube, hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, ring that bell, share us, and hit that like button. Have a great day, everyone. I'm Bill Cannon from Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. God bless.
Good night.
One episode just ain't enough.